Okay, appreciate everyone joining us today. We're going to talk about the new configurator, have some training on that. Appreciate you all joining us. With that, we have Keith Camerud, who's in engineering. He's been with Chromalox for quite some time. He'll tell us a bit more about his background, but today basically we're going to cover the new configurator, what it is, why we've upgraded, go through a couple of the configurations that are available to you, and kind of the path going forward on how you'll know when new things are added, how to navigate and log in, where that will come from, where the link is, all the above. With that, I'm going to hand it over to Keith. Keith, you out there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, excellent.
I will share my... Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. Take over the control there, and I was just trying to mute visual there.
Yep.
Take control and show us all about it, if you don't mind.
Will do. I think my slideshow started. Okay, can you see my screen?
We can.
Okay. So as Eric said, my name's Keith Camerud. I've been with Chromalox since 1991. I used to be engineering manager at the Wisconsin facility, and then when Wisconsin closed, I started working in engineering mostly as CAD development with Inventor, AutoCAD, the configurator, which I did a lot actually when I was engineering manager at the Wisconsin facility. This configurator project is the two developers. Developers are myself and Mark Hagmeyer. Mark actually has even more time at Chromalox than me, even though I started at 91. So I don't know if Mark's on the call, but he's a big part of this project also. So today what we're going to do is we're going to just cover kind of why we're going to this new platform, and then I'm going to cover the basics. The basics includes pretty much everything. When I cover the basics, it's going to include what you're going to see in all of the configurators as we roll them out, or most of them at least. You're going to see a lot of similarities between the new and the old configurator, with the old configurator being from Aptean and this one from Oracle. Even though the look and feel is different, kind of the approach on how we do things in here is the same. After that, we're going to take a look at the 4 individual configurators we're rolling out. Or only, shouldn't say only, we're rolling out configurators piecemeal. We have 4 done. We have a schedule. There's going to be more coming out in a couple of weeks. And going forward, we'll just be rolling them out as they're finished and tested. So a couple of years ago, Mark and I were given the challenge of starting to start a committee to evaluate configurator platforms. Those of you that have used our old configurator, which was CS and then was bought out by Aptean, it's been in service for over 15 years with the company. Let me go back here. And Mark will attest to that it's outdated technology. In the 15 years we've worked with it, there hasn't been one single major enhancement, maybe just maintenance, but no major enhancements. And it's also Java-based, which has some limitations also. After our committee evaluated, I don't know, we evaluated about 4 or 5 major suppliers of configurator software. We went with Oracle CPQ. We had some specific criteria that we wanted to meet and get our technology up to base. One of the nice things, it's cloud-based. It does not require that you be on the VPN or even on the Chromalox network. So you can pretty much access it from anywhere. It supports all web browsers. After doing some testing, I personally found Chrome seems to provide the best experience. It just, fonts don't overlap as much. It just looks a little better, but basically you can use any browser you like. It can be accessed by any device, including smartphones, which I don't believe we can do very well in the old configurator. And as I mentioned, this last bullet point I mentioned earlier, the look is much different than Aptean, the old Aptean configurator, but most of the inputs in the general approach is very, very similar. So you will see similarities when you start using it.
So Keith, that is a good point. So, before the old configurator, they told us to use Explorer only, right? So the functionality of both, even though they look a little different, we can use any web browser whatsoever.
Yeah, in the old configurator, I don't know if Mark's on, but you could use different browsers. I don't think it worked well in Chrome. I know there were issues with Java, but with this one, you can use any browser. So,
excellent.
Hopefully that answers that question. So we are going live tomorrow with several products, which I'll talk about later. But tonight I'll be importing the users into the new configurator. So at some time this evening or when you come in the morning, you will have an email from noreply@bigmachines.com. And I noted here, don't confuse it for spam. We all get spam from time to time. This is going to be a legitimate email. And within that email, it will have at the bottom of the screen, or the bottom of the email, the URL where you log in. It's inconspicuous. It's right at the bottom. I wish they would have made it boldface and with the link built in, but just look at the bottom of the email, and it's chromalox.bigmachines.com. That will be your link. And then after you get the link the first time you log in, you should change your password. This is automated. You'll get a real cryptic password. You can keep that if you want, but it's always a good practice to change it so only you know the password. We do have a limit on licenses right now. We're basing it on usage of the old configurator. I wanted to add this point in. So it basically, we just went down the list and see who has used how many parts have been added on the old configurator by user, and we're using that as some criteria. So if you don't get a user account, just email Mark and I, and we can do some juggling around on that to make sure you can get in. Once you do get logged into the configurator, the home page is what you'll see over here on the left. The home page is structured by product family, product line, and then the product itself. An example would be, you can see component technologies here, and underneath that are band and nozzle heaters. If we were live, which I'll show you in a minute, underneath that you would see Alumaflex, ceramic bands, mica bands, Mighty Toughs. So it's real easy to work your way through. We also have a specialty configurator right here. That's pretty much limited to the application engineering group. They use that to add part numbers to JDE, and I'm assuming at some point we might put some other specialty configurators in here. Again, keep in mind what I'm showing you here is, this is a screenshot from our development version. You're not going to see all these products tomorrow as we're phasing things in, such as flex heaters and temp controls and strip and rings. But I will show you the live version here in a bit. Entry mode. So again, this is the basic functions that will work for most all of the products that we're rolling out. Those of you that use the old Aptean configurator, entry mode probably looks very familiar. Same approach here. It has the same selections as the Aptean configurator with the addition of retrieving configurations by customer part number. Now, we did have that in the old configurator, but the approach is different here a little bit. You select it. You can select it here, and it's based on group access. So you may or may not see all of these options depending on your access. You'll see on all the configurators a clear selections and start over button. That's new to this configurator. I think the Aptean one had something. Yeah, you can do a start over, whatever. this will look different when you click it. It just clears everything out, and then you go back to a real basic screen in that product group, and you'll just select your entry mode again. And I'll show you that again, I'll show you that in the demo. Next slide. There was some out-of-the-box functionality. These buttons that you see on here, Mark and I have created, but there is some out-of-box functionality within CPQ. One of them is update, and what that does, an update does a refresh of the configuration. It just basically runs all the calculations and constraints and bill of material rules over. Some of the controls in CPQ do not run an update automatically, or we can even set them not to do an update automatically. So you can always hit the update button on the upper right, and that will run all the rules. Start over, which you see here, takes you back to the home screen where you go all the way back and you work your way down through the products to get to where you want. It would be used if you're configuring a cartridge heater and then you say, oh, I want to configure a band heater. So you would hit start over. That'll take you to the home screen. And then add the quote is a really nice new function that we're working on. It's not done yet. I will cover it here in a bit, but we will be able to create quotes on Chromalox letterhead, and you can do it in PDF or Word or whatever, and I'll give you a preview of that in a bit. We're adding a help button to all the products, and it's going to be linked to the training videos for that product. So Derek, you'll probably just go out to YouTube or whatever, I'm assuming is the way you want to do it.
Yeah, YouTube or the team site. We'll have a link.
Okay, good. So all you'll have to do, let's say you haven't used Configure in a while, and you get to control panels, and you just don't remember all the ins and outs. The help button will take you to the specific video of that for control panels or whatever the product may be. There is one caveat. Derek and I will have to work on this after the meeting today and in the next couple of days to get those links set up. So if you get on in the morning, you hit help, if it doesn't take you to the video, it will shortly. We'll get that set up. Configuration feedback. Something we put in here that I feel is much better in Appian. It's going to give you feedback during the design process, and just to kind of guide you as far. Pardon me?
Next screen. You're going out of box.
Oh, I'm sorry.
There you
go. This screen, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Must have been a delay there. I was on this screen. Okay. Configuration feedback. Again, this will just guide the user during the configuration process. You will see the message in the upper right corner of the product you're configuring. It'll be right underneath the clear selections and start over button. And some of the typical messages you will get during the design process is enter the options to complete your configuration. That's pretty straightforward. It will tell you if your configuration is valid, which is good to know. When you're looking up a design, it will tell you if it wasn't found. When your design has been saved, it will tell you to press clear selection start over button to create or retrieve another configuration. You'll get a message, configuration has previously been designed. If you're configuring something and you look it up and it's already there. And if it's an intelligent part number, it will just tell you cannot revise it, nor will the revise button even be enabled if it's an intelligent number. If you retrieve a configuration that has been previously designed and has a PCN number, it cannot be revised. That doesn't mean that we couldn't change a PCN number, but you'd have to go through Mark and I on that one. It just won't let you do it. You can override part numbers. So if you do a design and you already have an existing number that engineering might want to use, you can override it. It requires to be 6 characters minimum and 25 characters maximum. The 6 characters minimum, it wasn't arbitrary, but that sounds pretty legit. Oh, we can't go over 25 characters because of limitations in JDE. If you do an override part number, it will also search to see if that part number exists or falls in the range of allocated part numbers. So let's say, this would probably never happen, but we have it covered. If you did an override part number for a band heater that actually fell in the ranges of numbers for a cartridge heater, even if that cartridge heater number hasn't been used, it checks for it. So it will eliminate duplicate part numbers. Or if you use an override part number for a part number that's already been saved, it will stop you from saving it, which is a good thing. If you do a revision and it matches an existing configuration, it will come back and say your modifications match an existing configuration where I have duplicate part number displayed. It will give you the part number and cannot be saved. So if you're configuring something or revising something and your changes match something, it will give you the part number that it matches. And then again, press, I duplicated this bullet point here. Again, you can clear selections and start over to create or retrieve another configuration. These messages aren't all of the messages that you will see, but it's a sample of what you'll see during the design process. Pricing and bills of material. I like the pricing display on the user interface. As you can see over here in the left, most products will display an itemized pricing, a list of itemized prices, rather than the old Aptian configurator would give you a total. Now you can see which, based on the order tables, which feature is selected, what the price is for each feature selected. Many of the products now will display a bill of material, also right below the pricing. The display of that is really based on group access. That's a bill of material is beneficial for engineering to see. Other users probably really don't care, but you will see price and bill of materials. Pricing for sure, bill of materials on most other products. The display of the price and bill of material is normally on the right side of the user interface, but it can be on the bottom. It really depends on how the user interface for that product is set up. We're trying to stay consistent, but sometimes if just based on the number of selections, we might have to shuffle where the price and bill of materials are located. Also, it's important to know, this part is really important, if there's a constraint violation, the price and bill of material will not be displayed. It will just disappear from the screen. That has come up in testing. People have asked me why, but that's by design. And we'll talk about constraints in the next slide. So with constraints, there were constraints. They were called EC rules and compatibility rules in the old configurator. And here they're called constraints, basically the same thing. But there's something very important to remember is constraint violations do not prohibit the user from saving a design. This is something that Mark actually wrote some pretty powerful code for some other rules, and I'm thinking we can maybe massage that code into something for constraint rules that will prohibit you from saving the design, but at this point it won't. So just keep that in mind. If you see any constraint violations, don't hit save until you satisfy the constraints. It is the user's responsibility to ensure that all constraint violations are satisfied before saving a design. Most times the violation will be explained in some form or fashion. On these drop-down boxes, it just says invalid selection, and there's going to be an asterisk next to the item that was selected but is a violation. If you, in a case for band heaters, we might be more specific. If the user enters a dimension that is beyond the maximum or minimum parameters or constraints for that particular feature, it will tell you exactly what it is. In this case, it's saying you can't exceed 21 inches for a full or partial band heater. Same with the widths. I put in 60 inches and 36 on a silicon laminate heater. 36 inches is the max on a silicon laminate heater. Again, the price and the bill of material will disappear from the user interface if there's a constraint violation. The general flow of the user input is top to bottom, left to right. On the Aptean configurator, it was really left to right, top to bottom. But if you follow that practice, it'll minimize the number of constraint violations you'll see. Because basically, this first constraint, if I would have started at the top and worked my way down, this selection wouldn't have been available. The base option and feature option A just would not have been available. You would not have seen it. But if you start at the bottom, work your way up, you'll see the constraint violations. So you go, just use that general flow. They'll just guide you along. As I mentioned, in future releases, the ability to prevent a design from being revised or saved with a constraint may be possible. And again, I'm taking what Mark has done. I think we can make that happen. So, but at this time, keep in mind, it doesn't. The configuration summary, this is basically identical to what is in Aptean right now. It just says you're configuring the product. It just tells you what you've selected. Almost identical to what is in Aptean. As I mentioned before, a quote document will be generated in future releases, and we'll look at that in a bit.
Keith, until then, will you be able to copy and paste this text like you do in the current one?
Yep. Yeah,
okay.
I can copy and paste that easily. So this part's a bit different from most of the configurators. I believe Mark told me that one of the ones he's authored in Aptean has this feature, but it's going to be in all of the products that we configure. When you're done configuring our product, you'll get the message that the design is valid. And when you get to that point, this checkbox will appear automatically, design approved. At that point, you need to check that. And once you check that box, then it locks all your selections. And you can't change anything. And at that point, the save button appears. As I mentioned, all entries are locked. The user can now save the design. But let's say you do hit design approved and you look, it's like, oh, shucks, I got the wrong selection here. Just uncheck it, and then you can go back to configuring. And it will still check your design to make sure it's valid before the design approved comes back up. The one thing I wanted to point out, this has been commented on a couple times in testing, there may or may not be a slight delay when you save a design. If you look basically on if you look at your browser, and it depends on the browser, there'll be a spinner, and you can tell, for instance, in Chrome, it's up in the upper left, and you can tell if it's processing. This really is dependent on how many users are logged on, and since it's in the cloud, how busy our cloud server is. So the delay I've seen is usually no more than 2 or 3 seconds. Sometimes it's instantaneous. It just saves the design. But the clear indication is you'll get the message once it's done, the design has been saved, press clear selections and start over button to create or retrieve another design. Retrieving a design by part number. This is, again, it's almost identical to Aptean. You select part number in entry mode right up here. You put the part number in the enter part number text box, and then you hit look up design. If the part number is found, check the display price configuration summary box. And that is, let's see, I'm pointing to it. Or did I show it? Right here, display price configuration summary. If it finds the part, you have to click on that, then it runs another iteration of the pricing rules, and it'll show the configuration summary. And at this point, depending on the user's access rights and the type of product, the Revise button and the Refresh JDE button will appear. Normally, those two buttons are limited to engineering. When retrieving a design by part number, the user can use the part number that's retrieved as a prototype or boilerplate for a similar to design. So here I just retrieved a part number. I'm going to display the price and configuration summary, which now gives the user the ability to create similar to. At this point, by clicking on that, entry mode is set to product, and you can make the various selections to make a design that's similar to what you just retrieved. I'll make some minor changes to this design. I need to change my circuits. And now I can approve the design, which will lock everything. And now I will save. A new part number was assigned, and this was generated using the similar to functionality. Retrieving a design by configuration. This is, again, just like Aptean. You select product data. You make your selections to configure the product. Once you get the message that it's a valid design, you press Design Approved, and then it will run a search to see if the part number exists. If the configuration is found, check the display price configuration summary. Just like in the previous slide, this will generate the price and configuration summary. And at this point, I got to take this back. This is wrong, I'm sorry. You can refresh JDE, but you can't revise a product that you're configuring by product data. So you can see only the refresh JDE button will come up. You can't revise this. And again, this is engineering, pretty much engineering only access. Revising a configuration. Most of the products in Aptean also have this, not all of them, but only configurations retrieved by part number can be revised. I mentioned in this previous slide, you can't revise one that's configured by product data. So if you pull it up by part number, you can revise it, otherwise you can't. Again, select Display Price Configuration Summary after the configuration is retrieved. This will display the Revise button if the configuration is eligible for revision. Again, I mentioned this in some of the feedback, but not all of it. These are the configurations that you cannot be revised. Anything with a PCM number, anything with an intelligent part number, we can't revise those because that would change the part number and would make no sense to revise it. You would just reconfigure it. And only application and design engineers can revise a design. If your revision matches an existing design, the configurator will notify you and the revisions cannot be saved, and you will get a message just like this. So it'll tell you what I just said, and it'll give you the part number that it matches. Once revisions are made, you just save the design, just like a new design, same process, and an audit trail of the revisions to the configurations is saved. So if something's revised 5 times, Mark and I can look it up and work our way back and tell you, what each revision entailed. There's a Refresh JDE button. This is something we have in many of the Aptean configurators. It's only available to engineering, but if you pull up a design, maybe that's like 5 years old and you're concerned that, the that changes have been made to the bill of material rules and pricing rules and all this good stuff, you can go in and just hit refresh JDE, and then you'll get a fresh router, bill of material, and maybe some of the fields in the item master. It's nice because if things aren't communicated properly and things fall through the cracks, within 5 years, a lot of things could have changed, and the bill of material may have not been updated in JDE, and this ensures that you get the latest and greatest data. Let me jump ahead. So, again, I just talked about the basics, and I'm flipping through some of them here. But these basics, again, I just want to emphasize, they're found in pretty much every configurator rolling out. Some are going to be a little different, but they're going to be in pretty much all of them. I mentioned we're going to have a rollout tomorrow of 4 configurators. It's going to be the ceramic band heaters, the Mighty Tough band and strip heaters, power controllers, and the new part number add to JDE configurator. Legacy designs from the old configurator will be imported. So if you configured something in Aptean, you can pull it up in CPQ. Based on group access, not all of you are going to see all of these. Most of you will see ceramic bands, Mighty Tough, and power control, if not everyone. Only engineering is going to see the new part number add to JDE. As we move forward, tomorrow, for instance, when you log in to the old configurator, you are going to do auto-assign. Products have been moved to the new configurator platform. There will be a link. You can click on it, and it'll take you right to CPQ. These will no longer be accessible in Aptean. So it's just a reminder, if somebody forgets and jumps on, they'll see this and they'll be like, oh, yeah, that's right. I have to go to the new configurator.
You'll start to see that in the new year as you add new, correct, Keith?
Yes, definitely.
Okay.
So at this point, Derek, I went through the basics. So the next step is looking at the 4 individual configurators.
Sure. That covers the logon stuff. So that gets us. It would be important to point out to everyone you will get an email tomorrow with all your logon credentials, and please change your password.